Welcome back. In this step, let's focus on understanding the syntax of the TypeScript class that we see. We will look at the syntax, we will identify which parts are coming from JavaScript, which parts are added in by TypeScript, and how do they compare against your Java code. What I've done is I've taken up the welcome component. So in the welcome component, I've added in Java code in comments. So each line of commented code that you see in here is a piece of Java code. As you would know, in Java, we would write classes and group them into packages. So at the top of every Java class, you would see something called package. Or if you don't put a package declaration, it becomes part of the default package. In JavaScript, we write classes, and all the classes in a single file are considered to be part of a module. In this specific file, we only have one class, but the thing is you can create other classes as well. So I can say export class 1 and also create a number of classes in here. This combined thing is called a module. A module in JavaScript represents one file which contains class and function definitions. So if you want to remember it, it's one file per module and one module per file. And modules is how you would organize classes in JavaScript. Now let's say I would want to use a class from another module. The way you do that in JavaScript is by using a import statement. Over here, this is a built-in Angular package. Let's say I would want to use a app component. So I would want to use, let's go to the Explorer. So let's say I would want to use the app component.ts class in here. This app component which is present in here. How can I do that? The way I can do that is by saying import app component from, you need to say the path to that particular module file. So where is that particular module file present? // so I'm going to the root. So now I'm here in app in // in app .component. You don't need to specify the .ts. So this is how you would specify it, and you would put braces around this. So if I want to use the app component, this is how you would import it in. Because it's not used in the code of the specific class, it's highlighted in a kind of a lightish shade. This is how you would import a class which is defined in one of the modules, one of the files which is present inside our own package. The concept of modules, as we see in here, was introduced in JavaScript version ES6. Now let's move on to the definition of a class. The definition of a class is very similar to how we do it in Java. Class and class name. Making the class implement an interface, implements on init, is more of a TypeScript feature. And this is exactly same as how we would do that in Java. The important difference comes when you would want to use this class outside this module or outside this particular file. In Java, one of the options which is present is public. So if I want to use a class outside the package, I can make it public and it can be used everywhere else. In JavaScript, the option you need to use is something called export. Export here indicates that I would want to use this class outside the boundary of this particular module, outside the boundary of this particular file. So if I do a Control X, I'm removing the import and saving it, you would see that we would have a few compilation errors. If I open up the app.module.ts, what you would see is a compilation error. It says I cannot use welcome component. That's because this is not exported. So if you want to use a class outside the boundary of its module, you would need to export it. So the concept is very simple. If you want to use a class from outside the module, you would have to import it. If you want to expose a class outside the boundary of this module, then you need to export it. Now let's shift our attention to methods. The way we define a constructor is by using a keyword called constructor. In Java, we would have done something like this. We would have said public, class name, and typical method syntax. Now, moving on to the normal methods. Typically, if it was Java, then you would do something like this, void init or something of that kind. In JavaScript, you don't really need to worry about the return type because you cannot declare it. TypeScript makes it safer, and in TypeScript, you can say colon void. This says this particular method will not return anything back. If you would want to return a string, you can put string in here. So if you see code anywhere, putting a colon and declaring a type, then it's basically the return type. Now let's move on to member variables. Let's say I would want to declare a variable in here. The way I can do that in JavaScript would be to say, okay, message is equal to and some welcome message. And I can use this in, let's say, the methods by saying this dot message. So I can say console.log this dot message. If I did the same thing in Java, it would have looked something like string message is equal to, I have to use double quotes in Java for strings, right? So that's basically the way you would do that. In TypeScript and JavaScript, you don't really need to worry about single quote or double quote. Both of them would work. Typically, I prefer using single quote. So I do this kind of stuff. This is how you do it in JavaScript. In TypeScript, you can also add a type. So you can say message colon string is equal to this. So if you see code of this kind, then it is message is a string and I would want to have this default value for it. The thing is, TypeScript is intelligent. So even if you remove this, it knows that message is a string value. So if I say message is equal to 5 in here, it would start complaining. Actually, I should say this dot message. I cannot just say message. If I say this dot message is equal to 5, then it says I cannot assign 5 to it. It's a string type. So TypeScript is intelligent. It knows from the value you assign to it, what is the type of it, and it can recognize that. So this would give us a compilation error. The last thing we would want to look at is the decorator. So what you see in here is a decorator. In Java, we would call it annotation. So you would have annotation and different attributes. Similar to that, in TypeScript, this is called a decorator. And to this decorator, we are passing an object. So over here, we are creating an object and we are setting the attributes of that specific object. Similar to how we would do attributes in Java. Okay, we have discussed a lot of things in this specific video. The idea was to give you a quick overview of how things are different between TypeScript and Java. So we started talking about the fact that in Java we use packages to organize classes, whereas in JavaScript all the classes which are present in a single file and all the other functions which are present in here are part of a module. And if you would want to use a class from an external module, you need to import it in. If you want to allow usage of this class outside this specific module, you need to export it. We also looked at the syntax of classes, constructors, methods, and member variables. As I said before, this is just to give you a quick overview. We did not really cover every nook and corner. As we go along, you'll learn more about JavaScript and TypeScript. I'll recommend you to watch the lecture again and focus on every word of it. Being comfortable with the syntax is very important. Take a backup of the class, remove each word from it, and see what happens. Good luck, and I'll see you